This is the story of a boy named Red who hates his big brother because he always has to chase his back, and whenever he feels like he has finally caught up, he stands so far ahead. He detested the half-hearted consideration and favored his brother gave him just because they were blood-related. This is what he thought then. But he was an idiot, and he realized this when his brother died because of him. He regrets how he can hate the one and only family he had. He looked up to him and wanted to stand on equal footing by his side, but he died while protecting him. His brother Aesir keeps going ahead of him until the end and parts, and only Rudd survives at the moment. After that, he hides himself under a tree, but the dragons fly over because they sense the smell of blood. One of his arms and a leg are already gone, so he can't run anywhere. However, he thinks he will die, so that he will bring a few of those dragons' heads with him to the other world. Suddenly, there is a flash of light, and the Dragon King appears before him. Judging by his aura and scent, he's definitely the king of the dragon race, but everyone has already died. He can't sense any power from this person, as if he is looking at a mirage, a vague presence. After a while, he asks Rudd if he is the one who has remained while his instincts are screaming furiously that this man is dangerous even more than those horrible 7 Dragon Kings, so he must kill him. He has only one chance to close their distance and attack him with all he has. He comes forward and attacks him with his sword, which results in cutting his head into 2 parts. At the exact moment, his vision was blocked by a white flash of light. After that, he finds himself at the ceremony day of the Academy and thinks that he has returned to the past. The story begins on the introduction day of the Dragon Annihilation Academy, Aesir, and the student's president is giving the first-year students a speech that they all are dragon slayers. As that name implies, they must kill the dragons and stop those monsters who trample on innocent lives. This is their calling and duty. It doesn't matter if it's out of duty or for entertainment. There is a sudden flash of light, and when Rudd opens his eyes, he again finds himself at the Aesir entrance ceremony day. He remembers a battle of dragons that happened on Earth, and all the people had been killed there. He thinks this is impossible since he killed many of the dragons by himself, but there doesn't exist any magic spell regarding time travel. At first, he doesn't understand what happened to him, but later, he thinks he can use this time as an opportunity, and this time, he will kill all the dragons. He is walking on the stairs, talking to himself, when a girl calls him from behind and asks him if he is sick anywhere. He remembers her from the day of the ceremony and calls them by her name, Henith Harpulia, but she is surprised and asks him how he knows her name, so Rudd makes an excuse that she is a top entrant, so he knows her. She wondered about his sickness because he had been talking by himself and cursing since earlier, so she asked if he had a mental illness or something. Rudd smiles and thinks she is as rude as always, but Henith doesn't like his smile and calls him a pervert who likes getting cursed at. Meanwhile, they hear an announcement that the entrance ceremony will start soon, and Rudd thinks everything happened after this ceremony last time. Henith asks his name, and he tells her Aesir Denatos and comes from a place called Dissol, which is located on the outskirts of the country, so she must not be aware of it. She offers to teach him anything he doesn't know. For example, the people on the 2nd floor are all the guild leaders of famous guilds. They are looking for suitable talents to keep an eye in advance, while Rudd thinks he knows them very well, what kind of achievements they will achieve in the future, and how they all will die. Henith states that he will be eligible to apply for a guild once he reaches the 3rd year, although it's already been decided for her because the Midsummer Flames guild leader, Lyanna, is her perfect role model. The White Flames Empress, Lyanna Cherneka, is a top-ranking fire magician who uses pure white flames. Rudd thinks he also died at the hands of the Dragon King, and then Henith became the next Midsummer Flame guild leader. But eventually, she also burned her life to avenge the senior she longed for. Suddenly, there is an announcement for Henith to come forth to read her oath, and Rudd thinks the situation is going according to his memories. And if his memory serves him right, after this, his brother will come, the Iridium's student council president, Aesir Denatos, the unparalleled genius, the indomitable warrior, and his one and only family. But he is shocked to see another student as the student body president, Jeremy Duval. He is shocked because he remembers that his brother was the president, and Jeremy was his closest friend. He rushes to Jeremy and asks him what he is doing there and where Aesir is, but he is shocked when Jeremy states that it is his first time hearing the name Aesir Denatos. At that time, an ominous assumption passes his mind that Aesir doesn't exist in this world. With this, the entrance ceremony is over, and they ask all the newcomers to go to their assigned classrooms. At the same time, Rudd is stuck in his mind and thinking about his brother. Thousands of assumptions are coming into his mind. What if Aesir regressed and decided not to go here? Or maybe he has been stuck there for some reason. Suddenly, Henith comes to him and asks what he is thinking so hard, and he replies that he is looking for someone and is wondering if there is an excellent way to do so. She suggests that he should contact the Information Guild for that, or he should go to the library so that he can get the list of students from there. Rudd likes his idea and is going toward the library while Henith is also following him, and then she suddenly remembers that he was trying to pick a fight with the council president. Soon, they reach the central library, and Henith is fascinated by the beauty of this place since she has always wanted to come there. Rudd has never been there in his past life and starts looking for the record book. Meanwhile, Henneth gets excited to see a large number of books according to her taste that can't be bought with money. Rudd checks all the records of the students but doesn't find any students named Aesir Denatos, and now he gets that if he doesn't exist in this world, this is because of that Dragon King. Void Dragon, Sartnan, the Dragon King who controls dimension and void. He disappeared with Aesir's body during the last subjugation before his regression, meaning he might still be alive in that dimension. Suddenly, he hears some noises of Henneth arguing with the librarian about borrowing 17 books. However, she states that he can only read up to 3 books at a time and asks them to go to their classrooms since they have a lecture to attend. Rudd leaves her there and runs away toward class. After reaching the class, she asks him if he found the person he is looking for, and Rudd replies that his name wasn't on the list. Meanwhile, Daniel Gold, the instructor who will teach them basic combat this year, enters the class. He instructs the students that if they work hard and have a little talent, they can achieve more significant things. And Rudd wonders what he means by a bit of skill. He remembers how much desperation and shame he had faced to get that little talent. Daniel states that his introduction is enough for their short stay of 4 years in the academy, and instructs them to do their best and not leave any regrets. The Dragon Slayer, just like how it's named, is the one who kills the dragon, and in every battle theory, stamina is the most fundamental skill. So, there are free training grounds around the corner that they can use to train and increase their stamina, and Rudd goes to the training room he always used to visit when he was young. He wants to see if he still has that stamina, but after some training, he gets tired and thinks he has become trash. But this is not surprising because he is just 17 right now. They have combat classes starting tomorrow, and he only has 1 week before the sparring class. If he doesn't want the same thing to happen this time, he should do better than he did in his past life. Suddenly, he senses a familiar silhouette, and another one of his allies in his past life, Balak Steros, appears there. He is a physical combatant who will later earn the title of Fist King, but he never met him in his past life there. He started coming to this training room after the midterm examinations in his past life, and they were supposed to meet in the priest training room. But maybe this is happening because of the time difference. He thinks to ignore him for now because there's no need for this, but Balak constantly stares at him and irritates him. He gets angry and shouts at him, asking if he should try to pick a fight with him, but Balak says he is just exercising. He states Rudd's postures were so perfect that he wanted to copy him, and no one in his family, including his father, has shown him such perfect movements. They introduce each other, and Balak states that he will treat him as his workout master from now on, but he refuses his offer, saying he can't teach him. The following day, Daniel takes all the students to a training ground and asks all of them to choose a weapon of their choice. Henneth asks him if she also has to select a weapon because she is going to be a wizard, but Daniel replies that real battles can happen at any time, so she should know how to protect herself, even if she becomes a wizard. Rudd suggests that she should choose a short dagger to control the blade's attack radius with her mana, and it's easy to carry around. In the past, Henneth had a talent for the dagger and used it quite well when saving up some mana or during a sudden close combat. Rudd takes out his sword and swings in the air. Meanwhile, Daniel is watching him from behind and is surprised to see his swing because it doesn't belong to an ordinary student. Rudd comes to him and asks if he can use multiple weapons, and Daniel replies that it's more efficient to focus on one weapon. But if he is interested in various weapons, he can have them. Rudd chooses a sword, a spear, and a big sword and states that he will use all of them at once. Daniel impresses him and asks what he did before he enrolled in the academy, and he replies that he worked as a mercenary to survive and lost his family to a dragon. Suddenly, they hear a noise from Class B, where Balak is fighting with another student over a weapon. He is at the point that he can't use a weapon because his body is a weapon. He is shouting loudly that the physical combatants of the Stereos family don't use weapons while all the students are watching them quietly. Suddenly, Balak notices Rudd there and rushes toward him. Henneth asks him why he is coming toward them or if they are friends, but he refuses by saying he doesn't know him. Meanwhile, Daniel grabs him from behind and says he can't go to his friend when his professor is talking to him. Balak exclaims that he is not his friend, but they have a deeper relationship of master and student. Rudd interrupts him and says they are friends, while Daniel is trying to persuade him to choose a weapon because they are in the middle of the training. Rudd thinks they will just let him be, just like it happened in his past life, but he gets shocked when Daniel threatens him, saying he will have to repeat his year, which means the past has changed. He thinks it may happen because of his involvement, and if Balak fails here, it'll complicate things for the key force that will face the future Dragon King. Balak states he will humbly accept failing, but he interrupts him and asks him to shut up, and asks the professor if he can make an exception this one time. Still, he refuses by saying he can't make an exception just for Balak because it will be unfair to others. He thinks there must be a weapon of his type and gives him a pair of gauntlets, but he again refuses by saying a warrior from the Steros family doesn't use the weapon. But Rudd asks him to take it as a gift from a friend. He agrees immediately in the name of a friend, and Daniel states they will call it a uniquely designed gauntlet. It is said that the first week in Air Item is the time for new students to adjust, but it's also the time when professors learn the students' abilities and scout them. Rudd has done enough to catch their attention and earn a recommendation, so he wants to spend the rest of this time preparing himself for the sparring class. But he wonders why they both are naturally grouping themselves with him. Meanwhile, some students appear in front of them and call their attention to hogs. Henneth gets angry and asks them to move out of the way, while the boy exclaims he doesn't have anything against her and also enjoyed her speech earlier. She starts shouting at them, but Rudd asks her to move aside and asks them what they want, and the boy says he has a problem with them because they create scenes in the class to get attention. They all make fun of and laugh at them, saying how they got admitted to the academy. Rudd remembers he has beaten them all in his previous life because he was short-tempered, but this time, he will act maturely and not get freaked out. He exclaims that they are enough to fight them with one weapon, even if they use 500. The boy receives furious about this and tries to punch Rudd, but he easily dodges him. He can't balance himself, falls on the ground, and tries to take out his sword, but Henneth shouts at him and says that using weapons outside of sparring is prohibited. But he doesn't listen to her and tries to attack Rudd with his sword, while he thinks he can test this body and the move he learned from Balak in his previous life. He uses the skill of Steros-style barehanded parrying, dodges him with his bare hand, and punches him back. He badly falls on the ground, and Rudd asks him to consider it a lesson for the next time, while Balak is shocked to see his technique because it belonged to his family. Meanwhile, a professor appears there and asks about what is happening there. One of Wilhelm's friends claims that Rudd hit him first, but Henneth and Balak defend him, saying that he attacked him first and just responded to his attack. The instructor is surprised at how he was able to disarm him barehanded because a first-year student can't do this without injuries. She asks Wilhelm's friends to take him to the clinic and calls Rudd to come to his office after classes. When all of them leave, Henneth asks him how he used this technique barehanded, and Balak reveals that the adults of his family can perform this skill, but he can't yet. He asks him if he is, by chance, his lost brother, while Rudd thinks he can't tell him that he taught him this in his previous life. He brags that he is born a genius, but Henneth thinks he is hiding something from them and asks him to spell it out, but Balak forbids her, saying they should not dig into each other's secrets. After class, he goes to the instructor's office, apologizes to her for causing a commotion, and exclaims that Wilhelm insulted his friends so that he unknowingly beat them up. The instructor gets emotional about what he said and thinks he is a nice guy who beats others for his friends. She allows him to go in a good mood, gets angry at Wilhelm, and says she will make sure to go hard on him during training. Meanwhile, Daniel enters her office because today's meeting place for the freshman class teachers is her office, and he calls her stubborn because she is too lazy to come. After a while, Class D's homeroom teacher, Arthur Winston, and Class C's homeroom teacher, Damian Grace, enter her office and start the meeting. Daniel states that the new students this year are on a higher level than last year's, and the graduation rate should turn out well. Arthur asks them if there are any students they should watch, and Damian replies that they are all quite excellent, and Claire states there is an idiot and a lunatic in Class B. She talks about Balak, whose written exam was terrible, but his practical skills were unmatched. But he belongs to the famous unarmed muscle enthusiast Steros family. But Daniel looks forward to him because his abilities are the real deal, and he exclaims there are two prospects in his class, the famous mage family, Harpulia's second daughter, Henneth, and a student named Aesir Denatos. They are shocked to see his profile that he barely passed the written and practical exams, lost his family, and worked as a mercenary, but Daniel states he is the strongest out of all the first years. Claire also praises him and says he looks out for his friends, speaks courteously, and is an exemplary student, and she likes him instantly. She also tells them about the sword-playing idiot, Wilhelm, that Rudd was the one who subdued him barehanded. So, she exclaims that she should be his teacher because she is an unarmed combatant. But Daniel is at the point where his true talent lies in weaponry, like the spear and the sword. They both start fighting each other, and each of them wants to keep Rudd as his student. Arthur interrupts them and says this is not how the teacher should behave. He states there's still a week until the sparring class, so they should calm down. Moreover, the student has the right to choose the professor, and they are shocked when Claire tells them that Rudd belongs to Disol. 10 years ago, the village got disappeared after the Thousand Form incident. It was a tragedy that destroyed half of the Calavan kingdom located to the south 10 years ago. This began the decline of their national strength, eventually disappearing from the maps after a couple of years. A single dragon destroyed an entire country, and Daniel reveals that the one who killed 1,000 dragons was his master, but they didn't know that there was a survivor of the incident. They wonder if he has come to the academy to train himself for his revenge on dragons. Meanwhile, Arthur reveals that there is another student in Class D, another genius with a monstrous talent. 2 days later, at the physical training combined class, Rudd is exercising and thinks there are 3 days until the sparring lecture, and now he is finally used to the breathing technique and postures he used in his past life to some extent. Meanwhile, Henneth appears there and shouts at them how they can work out for 3 hours straight without resting, while Balak suggests she should exercise with them because he thinks all the women in this academy look like they have been starved for weeks. After some time, Henneth and Rudd go to a cafe to buy some drinks when he sees a girl named Leonkur and remembers her from his past life. She used to bully him, saying she considered him more vital than his brother, but he was weaker than him. She is a swordsman with the talent of the devil, the Sword Saint, a knight who is as strong as his brother and one of the strongest dragon slayers. Suddenly, he remembers he hates her, so he yells at her and asks her to step aside, which makes him angry and tries to attack him. But Rudd easily blocks his attack, so she tries to kick him again, but he again blocks her attack. She thought he was just an idiot, but he dodged her attacks twice and asked her why he was trying to pick a fight with him. But Rudd exclaims she was the one who blocked their way first. He passes her, and Leon asks his name and says she will surely remember him. She leaves them there, and Rudd thinks he almost broke his wrist since he just wanted to test her strength, but she still has insane physical prowess. Henneth takes him to the infirmary and bandages him, and after some time, Claire rushes toward him and asks what happened to him, while Rudd says it was just an accident. But Henneth tells them that Rudd was one-sidedly beaten by a girl named Leonkur, while Rudd exclaims he didn't get beaten, but they just had a minor conflict. They both get shocked to hear about Leon, and Claire is determined to teach her a lesson, but Daniel forbids her. He states that if she doesn't control her temper and causes a ruckus, Arthur, who is in charge of Class D, will calm down the situation, saying that he will take care of it, so they need to move more smartly because Leon has beaten many students till now. First, they think to complain to Leon's guardian, the Dragon Annihilation Troops leader, so he asks Arthur to scold her properly. 3 days later, all the students gathered at the training ground for the combined sparring lecture of classes and B in the sparring lecture. Each of them will be assigned a number, and they can choose their opponent for the match. A student can't be selected as an opponent twice, so there will only be 2 sparring matches for each student. In the sparring lecture, all the professors in charge spectate the match from the second floor and evaluate the students. And first, they call Hellion McDowell to come out and choose his opponent. And his opponent is Henneth. Rudd thinks she is just a wizard who is weak in Mel but picks a sorter as her opponent since she has great pride. She attacks her opponent with the fireballs, but the speed of her fireballs isn't that fast so Hellion can dodge her easily. He tries to reach her before she can cast another spell, but Henneth increases her speed and doesn't give him a chance to reach her. He is trying very hard to dodge her attacks, and before he can react, she gets him and puts her dagger on his neck. He admits his defeat, and Henneth is declared the winner, while she wants appreciation from Miss Liana. Meanwhile, Rudd thinks her attacks were crazy, and it could have been dangerous if the opponent had noticed that a little earlier. He thinks Henneth is always like that, has a fancy way of fighting, has a great battle sense, and her agility is top-notch. Her use of magic is also the perfect time. Instructor Arthur also appreciates her, saying it's pretty rare to see a wizard fighting like this, and Claire announces and calls the next student to come out and choose their opponent. Wilhelm appears this time and calls Rudd to come out, saying he will not repeat his mistake like last time. While they feel embarrassed to see his confidence and high spirit, Rudd comes out by saying he will fulfill his wish, and soon, he defeats him so severely that Wilhelm becomes unconscious, and some students take him to the infirmary. Rudd exclaims that he again wants to spar with another student, and this time, he chooses Balak Steros, but he refuses by saying he doesn't want to fight him because the fighters of Steros don't fight with their friends. Rudd asks him if he will run away like a coward and thinks Balak is powerful. In his past life, the earth used to shake when he took a step, and the mountain fell when he threw a punch. When he calls him a coward, he states that the warriors of Steros don't run away from their fights like cowards and agree to fight him. Once in his past life, Balak came to him at the request of Aesir because they both fought, so he sent Balak to calm him down. But he used harsh words against his brother. He also threatens Balak by saying he will kill him if he interrupts in their matter, and they have a spar, too. But he gets trounced by him. But this time, he is determined that he will not repeat the past, and Balak comes forward to attack him first. But he doesn't just dodge his attack but punches his neck, too. He is unhappy with his current body because he landed several hits on him, but there are hardly any scratches. The Steros are a family of martial artists from the northern area, and each one of them is a deranged muscle admirer. Their muscles, which have been improved over the generations, have fused with mana to form a thick, sturdier armor than iron. It can be said that Balak's body has become the strongest shield and most muscular appearance, and in that case, regular attacks won't work on him. This time, he takes out his sword to attack him, and this time, Balak can't dodge his attack and falls to the ground. The teachers are shocked to see their fight and wonder if this was a battle between students, and it's just that they both didn't use any mana. But their abilities themselves were as great as the current dragon slayers. Claire observes that Rudd didn't give his best for the battle, Even so, he had perfect movements, postures, and accuracy, while Daniel is a fan of the ideal swing he showed at the end. He thinks Rudd's swordsmanship matches his master's, Ain Bryce of the Heavenly Sword style. But it doesn't make sense because he is sure his master and Russ have never been together, no matter how genius someone might be. He thinks no one could beat his devilish talent of Rudd, not even Leon, because Rudd isn't a genius, but a monster. He is a child whose skills are already perfected even before he has started learning, and all the teachers want to teach him. After the sparring lecture, they all go to the annex student cafeteria, and Henneth is unhappy because she doesn't want to come here and asks them to go outside to eat something. But Balak says the outside food lacks protein, and Rudd says he is tired, so they can't go outside, and asks Henneth why she wants to spend money outdoors when they get good food for free. Then he remembers she belongs to a wealthy family, while Balak also belongs to a wealthy family. He is the only one from a poor family, so poor that he has to risk his life to earn money. And he gets angry when Henneth offers him to buy some food from outside since Balak can afford this. He shouts at her, saying he doesn't need such kindness from her, when suddenly, some students approach them, and they seem to be looking for Rudd. They are the guild masters from the Pursuer and Clouded Moon guilds. Roderick Riddler, the guild master of the Pursuer guild, introduces himself and appreciates his way of fighting. And Rudd also introduces his name. He thinks he didn't have any acquaintances with them in his past life with Roderick and Abel, and when he started to work as a dragon slayer, they died in the battle against the 7 dragons. Roderick introduces him to Abel and exclaims that he is a little shy. Meanwhile, Henneth and Balak also get up from their seats and introduce themselves. Henneth asks them what they are doing in the students' cafeteria, and Roderick says they are alumni of this academy, so they often come there to eat. Henneth asks them if Miss Lyanna also came there to eat, but Roderick replies that she returned as soon as the sparring lecture ended, which makes her sad. He then tells Rudd that Abel complimented so much about him, saying that he is the kind of person he needs in his guild. While Abel asks him if he knows him, Rudd reveals that he is the 4th-ranking dragon slayer on the individual list, and the guild master of the 2nd-ranking guild Clouded Moon. And Abel replies that they are 2nd-ranked because they deal with the information, not because they are weaker than the 1st-ranker guild. He likes his confidence and wants to give him an offer, and he asks him to join them in the Clouded Moon Guild right after he graduates. Rudd asks him why he is going so far, and Abel states that he is a genius with great potential, so someone like him needs a bigger stage to show it off, and he assures him the Clouded Moon will provide him with the perfect stage. Rudd refuses him by saying he hasn't chosen a guild yet. While he thinks this can be a good deal for him, however, it won't be a good idea to already associate himself with a guild where he can't freely do what he wants. So, he asks Abel to make a deal with him and asks him to find his brother for him, who is older than him and survived the disaster 10 years ago. Abel asks him what he has to offer if he does that for him, and Rudd provides a good relationship with him. Abel thinks having a good relationship with a man with such a clear, bright future is not bad and hopes their good relationship will develop even further. When they leave, Henneth asks him what letter he has gotten from the teachers, while Rudd forgets about it because of the sudden offer. This is the letter regarding the assessment of the first sparring lecture, and Rudd doesn't remember getting good reviews in his past life. He is about to open and check the letter, but Henneth says there is no need to check it because she is sure it has only good things that his family would be proud of. Rudd thinks about her weird behavior and wonders if she is bothered by what he said about his brother, and then remembers about her elder sister, who is in a coma. Balak asks him what kind of man his brother is, and he replies that he is so kind that someone feels like an idiot. Indeed, Aesir was an idiot, although he was an indomitable dragon slayer. He struggled because of his incompetent younger brother. He remembers him and says he is so powerful that someone like him can't even compare to him, and Balak asks him not to worry and that he will find his brother soon. Henneth interrupts them and asks them to open the letters. She opens her letter, which says she has great potential to become a great battle wizard. Balak's letter says he has the perfect body, outstanding strength, and reflexes, and also has beautiful muscles. He brags that he has gorgeous muscles that even the professors acknowledge him, and now it's Rudd's turn. Henneth grabs his letter and says she will read it for him, and they are shocked to see a sign on his letter that indicates that the professors are calling him to choose them. After some time, he enters the staff room, where all the teachers are waiting for him and excited to see him. Arthur asks him to sit and if he has a comfortable stay in the academy, while Claire asks him to have some coffee and snacks. Meanwhile, Daniel asks him to wear a jacket because it's still cold out, and Rudd asks them if they call him to choose their advisor. Arthur exclaims that he must know the meaning of the sign he left in the letter. After the sparring class, the first-year students are assigned to the professor who suits their traits, and there are times when the professor directly contacts a student, and these signatures are the sign for that. Claire states they prioritize the student's opinion and ask him to choose one of them. Rudd thinks they are all the best teachers, but Daniel was the one who chose him in his past life and taught him the way of the sword. So, he again chooses Daniel and says he wants to learn the course of the blade from him, which makes him happy, and he says he has made a good decision. But Rudd has a condition and asks Daniel to take him as his direct disciple, and they are all shocked to hear his condition. Daniel asks him if he knows what it means to be a direct disciple, and Rudd exclaims that there is no successor to carry forward the legacy of the sky-piercing technique. It is an ancient swordsmanship and mana-using technique designed to kill flying dragons taught to only one heir each generation. In his past life, Professor Daniel was the disciple of a legendary swordsman and master of his older brother, which meant his older brother was the next heir. Daniel asks him how he knows the seed is empty and thinks he wants him to be the next heir, but wants to offer him this proposition a little later, but he doesn't expect him to bring this up first. He asks Rudd why he wants that, and he replies he just wants power because he was weak, and the dragons killed his friends and family, and he might have saved them if he was stronger. From now on, he doesn't want to see the people he loves die in front of him. Daniel thinks about his family and wonders if they would still be alive if he were stronger. When he was young, he and his mother were running from dragons, and they killed her in front of his eyes. He agrees to take Rudd as his direct disciple and asks him what if all the professors co-teach and supervise him, while Rudd gets really shocked by his offer. He states that Rudd is talented, and learning just one sword technique will be a waste of his talent, so if there is a way to awaken his potential, they must try everything possible. But Rudd gets up and says learning from one professor is hard enough, so how he can learn from all the professors at the same time. And, indeed, that will be an issue as this is unfair to others. But Arthur ignores what he is saying and exclaims that this is a good idea because they need a great dragon slayer in order to kill all the dragons. While Rudd is shocked to see that and wonders how they can agree on something that can become an issue in the future this quickly. And Arthur says it will not be unfair to other students because they don't have enough talent like him. Claire also raises her hand, and Daniel states that this is just an offer, and that they will respect his decision about whatever he chooses. He wonders if it is really appropriate to fill the position of the next heir to the sky-piercing technique while also accepting the other professors as his advisors, and what if someone else's opportunity disappears because of this since this can affect the future significantly. After thinking for a while, he agrees and asks the teacher to take good care of him, and he believes they have to secure everyone's future. In order to do that, he must surpass his limits and become stronger, no matter what it takes, after some time. Claire goes to Leon and reveals that from this point on, her self-control building lectures are starting with her. She then asks her to get into position if she stands there zoning out and tries to attack her first. She punches her stomach, which hurts like hell, and gives her the punishment of cleaning the academy because she hit Rudd on the last day. She is sitting on the stairs and crying when Rudd passes by her and is surprised to see that she is crying. He remembers she was so cold and sharp to the point that he wondered if she was human, and wonders if this happens after the death of the Dragon Annihilation Troop leader. In his previous life, Leon was an ordinary young child before the death of the leader, her adoptive mother. But at that time, he was also an immature little boy, so their relationship wasn't good either, and now he is the one who made her cry. He watched her through the door secretly for some time and then gathered some strength to ask her why she was crying in the hallway. But she starts shouting at him and says she is having a hard time just because of him. But he gives her a tissue and apologizes for his rude behavior. She is surprised that he is apologizing obediently, and accepts his apology by saying she will not let it slide if he makes more of a nuisance than this. Rudd assures her that he will avoid her as best as he can and thinks she will get stronger by herself without any help, and she was also acting alone in the past. She goes to her room thinking she has done something she never did, which doesn't mean she will make friends. While Rudd listens to what she says, she stops and asks him why he is following him, but Rudd exclaims he is not following her but is going to the professor drill. Paula Leon is also going toward the same side. Rudd is shocked and thinks they may have the same professor, Daniel. He has been waiting for them to come together, and Rudd asks him if he and Leon are in the same class, and Daniel replies that he nominates both of them. He is shocked because Claire was Leon's academic advisor in his previous life. Meanwhile, she approaches him and asks if he has any problem seeing her. He exclaims that she should learn grappling techniques with Claire because he saw her sparring, and she is already excellent in swordsmanship, so he thinks she should train in grappling. Daniel also agrees with him and says grappling techniques are the perfect option to fill the gap between sword attacks, while she doesn't have any idea that Rudd is observing her too much. She refuses by saying he is not only the smart one in the academy, but she knows what she has to do, and Rudd is worried about how he will train with her. He again tries to persuade her, saying she should go to Professor Claire, but she gets angry about this and states she will never go under that lunatic professor who beats her students like dogs. Rudd thinks the future has changed again because in the past, Leon's academic advisor was Claire, and they had such a good relationship. But now they are like sworn enemies. This all starts with Daniel's plan, but the root cause of this plan is him. Daniel says that before starting the class, he will give them a brief explanation and states that the stages of swordsmanship are profound because it takes painstaking efforts that will break his bones to complete it. Both of them are already raised to an excellent stage where they no longer need theories, but there are thousands of ways to use a completed movement. According to Daniel, the perfect training to pile up that experience is through self-control sparring lectures, and they are shocked that he wants them to learn while receiving a beating. After some time, the lecture ends when they both are in miserable conditions. Still, Daniel seems happy and says that from now on, they will have the group and individual lectures simultaneously, just like today, and wish them a good weekend. Rudd is dead tired and thinks he cannot defend himself, while Leon says they should not be angry when they lose because they are weak. Besides, they need to learn precisely because they are weak. Also, he should know that Professor Daniel is an easygoing person. Rudd gets up and is about to go, but Leon stops and says if he feels sorry for her, he should teach her the grappling techniques. But Rudd refuses and asks her to go to the professors. She requests him, saying she doesn't have enough time to learn swordsmanship, so it's more convenient if he teaches her. Besides, she is getting tired of getting beaten up by Professor Claire. Somehow, he agrees to teach her and runs away, while Leon asks him to keep his promise. He thinks the differences between this life and this past life keep throwing him off guard, so he can't turn down her request either and decides to use this as an opportunity to repay the debt he owes her in his previous life. It's her fault for asking him to teach him the grappling techniques, so he will make her regret it. The Dragon Annihilation Academy, Iridium, is located in the capital of the Alpia Empire in the continent's center. Therefore, the Imperial family tends to spare no effort to support it, and the Imperial Guild scouts most Iridium graduates. Most of the facilities in the academy are built in the latest style. Still, students are bound to be dissatisfied with their boring academic life since they can only travel within limited space. Therefore, students can freely go around the capital on weekends and big holidays, and Henneth asks them to go outside with her. But they both seem tired, and Rudd exclaims he wants to sleep the whole day, while Balak's forearms also need a break. Henneth says she will buy them an expensive meal later, so they have to go with her, and they agree after seeing no way to escape. After dragging them the whole day, she takes them to an expensive restaurant where servers warmly welcome Henneth. Rudd thinks he has never been to a place like this, even in his previous life, and Henneth states that they will all have the same courses, with carbonated water. Balak says he wants to have many meals, while Rudd is shocked to see the food prices on the menu card. One course costs him a whole month of food. He asks Henneth to get up because this place is very expensive, but she exclaims they have worked hard carrying her luggage, so this much is a given and asks them to order anything they want. After some time, the food is served, and Balak appreciates the taste, saying it is incredible. But this is not enough, so they should order some more food, but Henneth throws a knife toward him and asks him to shut up. She then turns toward Rudd and asks him if he likes the food while he thinks the taste of all the foods is the same for someone with a cheap mouth like him. Besides, after talking about his brother the last time, for some reason, he can feel her excessive kindness towards him since they both were more of frenemies than friends in his past life. Even though she's crazy, and seeing her true self is better, he doesn't like her being like this at all. Meanwhile, Balak again tries to order, but Henneth grabs her hand furiously and asks him to stop ordering. If he touches the menu one more time, she will chop her hand off and make him eat it, and Balak immediately pulls his hand back. Rudd thanks her for treating them to this delicious meal, while his discrimination makes Balak sad. It's almost 8 o'clock, and Rudd remembers he promised Leon to teach her at 8. On the other side, Leon is waiting for him, and it's already 8:05, but he hasn't come yet. He is the first friend with whom he had a normal conversation. Unlike her, he seems to have many friends, so she thinks he may have forgotten their promise. After some time, Rudd enters the room and asks her why she has come earlier, and Leon replies he is late because he should arrive 10 minutes earlier for his appointment. She asks him if he has eaten something before coming here, and he responds that he just ate some food with the other kids in the capital, and starts a conversation about grappling techniques. But she still asks him about his friends. Rudd asks her to begin with simple footwork, and after some training, he says if she is so eager to see the capital, he can take her next Saturday. She becomes happy, agrees to go next weekend, and is excited to see many things in the capital. She asks him multiple questions about where he went with his friends and what they usually do for fun. But Rudd asks her to keep quiet because that's enough for today. He can't believe she's this talkative and wonders how she held it in his previous life. He starts with the training that the grappling technique he will be using is the stereo style. Therefore, he can only teach him some technical forms and fighting methods and states that Professor Claire uses a mixture of grappling arts from all continents. She has neither a fixed form nor a way to neutralize her, so the only way to deal with her is to get hit less while effectively landing her blows on her. Leon asks him how she can get hit less when she can barely put up her defense against her, and Rudd replies that he is trying to teach her how to get hit less. He moves in front of her, and Leon thinks she can't read his movements, and they are almost like a snake wriggling. He states it's a footwork technique using only the tips of her toes. Reading the movements is difficult because she only uses minimal leg muscles. He reveals that he made this himself, and they don't use things like this because they fight with their bodies, and Leon impresses him and calls him a genius. She tries to follow her steps, and Rudd thinks it took him 2 years to design and develop this footwork, 1 year to refine it, and 1 more year to master it. He thinks he can't be a genius when he has to do his most challenging to survive. The genius is the one who catches up to 4 years of hard work in just 4 minutes. Just like all of his companions from his previous life are geniuses. She asks him if he is doing right, but in the meantime, she falls on the ground, and Rudd exclaims that she is making a mess. He told her to use the tips of his toes and asked her to pull herself together. He asked her to get up and do it 1 more time. He seems happy and exclaims he will do her work until she is dead, and after all this, when he goes to bed, he thinks everything is going well so far. The way things are unfolding is not much different from his previous life, but his relationships are bigger variables than he thought. He doesn't know how this will affect the future, but since he doesn't want to die in the first place, it can't be the same as before. If he can gather his companions again and wipe out the 7th dragon, he will probably see that Dragon King again. In order to do that, he will have to play the role of his elder brother, and the first thing he needs to learn is the sky-piercing technique. The following day, he goes to the class and has a sparring match with Daniel, and Rudd thinks he is unexpectedly very playful. It doesn't seem like he's planning on losing, and Daniel is thinking of changing his style around there. He leaves his sword and attacks him with his fists, but Rudd reacts in time and dodges him. He asks if they are not supposed to use swords, but he laughs and replies that he tends to be very whimsical. Rudd thinks it's still physically challenging to take it head on, increasing the distance between them. Daniel thinks he will play along and asks him to show that he has got it. Rudd comes forward, attacks him with his sword, and throws it toward him. The sky-piercing technique is a sword that protects the guardian slash that blocks the enemy's attack and the countering slash that parries the enemy's attack. In his previous life, he only learned the swordsmanship of the sky-piercing technique to at least catch up his brother's toes. But the true sky-piercing technique needs another element that isn't sword techniques. Daniel grabs his sword and exclaims that his guardians and countering slashes are so amazing that there's nothing he can point out, but he still manages to block him. He then extracts his mana through his arm. He states that with its help, the successor of the sky-piercing technique manages the enormous amount of mana accumulated in a subspace called the Heavenly Spirit. Rudd remembers this thing used to be at the back of his brother's hand, and Daniel reveals that its power and efficiency are overwhelming. However, if the heart is already full of mana, its function as a channel drops, and Daniel asks him if he is training another mana management technique, and Rudd replies that he is not learning anything. In his previous life, the mana management he used was typical. It was based on the wizard's circle system, and this is the most significant variable he hasn't experienced until now. Daniel asks him to take a seat and asks him where he likes the imprint location to be, and Rudd asks him to put it in his hand. Daniel grabs his hand, and Rudd feels like he is on fire. After this, he can sense pure mana overflowing and the legacy of the successors from generations passed down for a long time. The stage they achieved through a whole life of devotion was reduced to information and mana and made up the sky, which is the piercing sky. Daniel asks him how the piercing sky he faced for the first time, and Rudd replies that it was wonderful. He tells him that he will need a long time to adapt to feeling and using mana, but he is shocked to see that he's not just aware, but already using the mana drawn from the Heavenly Spirit in only a few minutes. Rudd thinks that when he trained for alchemy arts, the circles on the heart represented the mana stage, but the stage of the sky-piercing technique is represented through the number of wings. Master has 6 wings, and the Sky Sword Immortal has 7 wings, just like his brother, while he has 1 for now. As the imprint is engraved on his soul, not on his body, the imprint cannot be broken by any means whatsoever. Even if the successor dies, the memories and powers of his whole life will be restored. But there were only 2 consciousnesses connected to the Heavenly Spirit, which were Master Daniel and the Sky Sword Immortal, who called him a child when he went to see the sky and found that Aesir wasn't there. If it's an imprint engraved on the soul, there is a possibility that traces of the brother will remain in the Heavenly Spirit after regressing. Still, the example of Master Daniel didn't include being confined to another dimension. He has only one clue that Aesir disappeared with the Void Dragon Sartnan. He then goes to Henneth and Balak, and she asks him why he is late because every second matters if they are to teach him. Rudd asks them why they start first, and they have to teach Balak, who always passes out during theory lectures only. Henneth asks him how his lecture with the instructor Arthur was, and Rudd thinks everything was normal except the excessive lecture he gave him. He praised him and called him unrivaled. Claire also praised him for his amazing foot techniques. On the other side, when he went to Professor Damien's office, they sat on the sofa, and Damien didn't say a single word for 1 hour. He thinks they hadn't known each other since his previous life, so he couldn't start the conversation. Moreover, he was the first one to die among the teaching staff. After that, it was silent for another 30 minutes, and the lecture ended, and he told Henneth and Balak that they drank tea, and class ended. He then asks Balak how his lecture with Professor was, and he replies that he likes Professor Claire because she is strong and respectable and is someone who can really relate to the beauty of muscles. While the case is the worst for Henneth because she is assigned a lecturer since there is no magician professor, and he says that flame-type magic is the peak of inefficiency, and tells her to learn other magic arts. Balak claims the lecturer is not wrong because the flame magicians are rare, but she gets angry about this, and Rudd asks her to calm down and suggests moving her lectures if she is so annoyed by him. But she seems disappointed because there are no flame lectures in Iridium. But Rudd reveals that the White Flame Empress may even nominate herself as Henneth's lecturer and teach her. She gets surprised to hear this when a student appears there and calls them from behind. He is Jeremy Duval, the student council president, the one who took Aesir's place. Rudd asks him if he does some research beforehand, and he states that Rudd has been chosen by all professors, which has caused quite a stir among senior students. Rudd asks him if he has come there to relay the complaint as a representative of the senior students, but he claims he doesn't have any complaints. He has come there to ask him if he is interested in the student council because they have always lacked a workforce. Still, Rudd refuses by saying he doesn't like becoming someone's limbs, but Jeremy says he will not be treated as some mercenary soldier. He seems angry while Jeremy says he was answering accordingly, but it seems he hits a nerve. Rudd has scars on his arm, and Jeremy thinks he must have lived quite a hard life. Rudd calls him a little too nosy, but it is Jeremy's hobby to play detective, and he already knows that Rudd is looking for his elder brother. Rudd thinks he is annoying as always, and his thrilling eyes and snickering tone seem like he knows everything. Even in his previous life, his gruesome insight gave him the nickname Decision Maker among dragon slayers, and his true nature is selfish and self-righteous. He was in making rational decisions for the absolute majority. Rudd says he doesn't enjoy playing detective. Still, he knows a thing or two about himself, that he is uselessly paying too much attention to others and how he uses his extraordinary brain to manipulate people into the palm of his hands. Jeremy says he ended up getting hated, but he is still interested in him. But Rudd exclaims he is not the slightest interested in him. Henneth apologizes to him for Rudd's behavior, and when he is left, she asks him why he treated him so rudely when he is still the student council president. Rudd states nothing good will come out of getting entangled with him, while Balak smells danger. Rudd opens his book and finds a note from Jeremy, who warns him to be careful from Professor Damien Grace. He gets angry and thinks Jeremy is the one he should watch out for instead of Damien. In his previous life, he did many crazy things, made ridiculous righteous choices, and sacrificed countless people. On top of that, Damien Grace was the first to die among the teaching staff and was Jeremy's first sacrifice. To be precise, Jeremy didn't kill Professor Damien since he killed himself by sticking a knife through his own neck. However, it was Jeremy who coaxed him to take his own life, and the reason was simple. Damien was a danger to the Empire in his judgment, and his death greatly impacted the future chain of events. This time, he must stop it before the same things happen, and he still has some time until that day. But maybe Jeremy is already putting pressure on Damien. It is Saturday, and he is going with Leon to visit the capital, while she is scolding him for being late. But he comes on time, but according to her, it's a courtesy to arrive 10 minutes early. But Rudd says it's already his best courtesy to spend his golden weekend with her, and he invited her because she was showing pitiful expressions like a dog in the rain. Soon, they reach the capital, and Leon is excited to see so many people there because this is the first time she has come there. She asks Rudd where they are going, but he doesn't know, but she asks him to escort her because he invited her in the first place. Rudd asks her to go and buy something first because all the kids he knows do that for fun, and she takes him to buy some new clothes. They enter a shop, and Leon likes a white dress there. Meanwhile, a salesgirl approaches them and asks if she wants to try it. She pushes the dress and asks Rudd for his suggestion, but he refuses by asking her to do whatever she wants. She buys the dress and says she wants to buy something for him, too, since he agrees to accompany her, while Rudd refuses to take anything. But she forcefully asks him to try a dress, and the salesgirl appreciates him open-heartedly when he wears it. Leon is staring at her, but Rudd asks her to quickly give the money to the salesgirl because she wants him to buy this dress. She doesn't like his way of talking and thinks she shouldn't have bought him anything. After that, they eat food at some place, and Leon likes it, and she asks him why he paid for the lunch when she was going to buy it. Rudd replies that she bought him clothes so he is not shameless, that's why he paid for the lunch, and she calls him a strange man. While walking, she asks him if he has any comrades or companions from his work as a mercenary, and Rudd thinks he had companions when he was an active duty dragon slayer in his past life, not a mercenary. She asks him if he is close to his companions and lives like a family and if he loves someone there. But instead of replying, he shouts at her, saying they were not like a family because they treated him like a kid and everyone was ready to stab him in the first place. Leon covers her ears and exclaims she has never seen someone like him before because he is someone with a dirty personality who flips out at a single question. But at the same time, he's honest and is teaching her the grappling techniques. Even now, He is looking at the tourist brochure to find where they should go next. After that, they enter the city Siren of the Liberal Kingdom, and Rudd tries to tell her that it is against the Academy's rules. But Leon says they will be fine as long as they aren't caught and aren't wearing their uniforms either. While Rudd is at the point where spending 6 million riddles to use the warp gate once was a waste. And Leon says her mother allowed her to spend the money however she likes. They are in the western regions of the continent. Siren, the capital of the Liberal Kingdom, however, the headquarters of the Dragon Annihilation Troop isn't located in the kingdom's capital. This city is lively and fancy. In his memory, Siren was a dead city, and a few years later, this place was destroyed by the attack of the 7 dragons. The Dragon Annihilation Troop was also wiped out around that time. Leon shows him her home, and Rudd thinks it looks more like an aristocratic mansion than a guild headquarters. Meanwhile, a gardener sees them there and asks Leon what she is doing there or if she is on her vacation. And she replies that she just wanted to introduce her friend to the guild's members, so they are only stopping by for a while. Uncle Herold is surprised that she finally made a friend outside of the Dragon Annihilation Troop and is running to tell all the members to throw a party. But she stops her, saying it's embarrassing for her. After that, they ask him to come inside, and when they go inside, the kids there ask him multiple questions. If his life is in danger or if Leon hired him after paying tons of money. Leon pushes all of them away, and Rudd thinks this is his first time seeing the faces of the Dragon Annihilation Troop's members. However, they are giving him such a familiar atmosphere, and he can now understand why her personality took a 180-degree change after Siren was destroyed. After some time, Uncle Herold calls them and asks them to go to the reception room, where the leader is waiting for them. After some time, they enter the reception room where Dragon Annihilation Troop leader Adeline Kerr, Leon's mother, is waiting for them. She greets them and asks if it's in the middle of the semester, so why she has come there or if she gets suspended for beating someone up again. And Leon tells her that she just wanted to see her and introduce her friend. But she is shocked at the name of the friend, and a woman who is also present there says it's shocking to hear that Leon, who has 0 sociability skills, has made a friend. She is the Midsummer Flame Guild Master, Lyanna Chernica, and Rudd greets her while Leon exclaims that this woman always comes to their home because she has nothing else to do. She remembers him from the sparring lecture and asks him about Henneth and if she is doing well, and Rudd tells her that she is stressed out because she doesn't think the magic teacher this time is good. Meanwhile, Leon's mother starts crying, thanks him for being her daughter's friend, and tells him that her daughter is a little strong. She remembers the academy contacting her the last time she broke her classmate's wrist, and she gets shocked when Leon tells her that Rudd is the same student. Moreover, he picks up a fight first, and she also receives a punishment, but her mother scolds her and asks if she taught her martial arts to bully people around her. Rudd makes it clear that she didn't bully him, and he was the one who said some thoughtless things, so that's why she fought, but her mother asks Leon to apologize to him. She apologizes to him then for hitting him, and her mother again asks her to be careful with regular students. Lyanna exclaims that Rudd is not a normal student since she saw him fighting, and he played with the child of Steros like a toy. And she also heard that he received a scouting offer from Abel. Leon also adds that this boy is strong and is teaching her grappling techniques, and Leon's mother exclaims that she wants to see with her own eyes how strong he is. Rudd has rumors that the leader of the Dragon Annihilation Troop is quite aggressive, so this is an opportunity to fight against an active top-level dragon slayer, so he agrees immediately to spar with her. Soon, the news spread around the guild that the first friend Leon brought home and the leader will spar, and everyone thinks he will not last for a few seconds. The leader lends him the uniform of the Dragon Annihilation Troop, while Leon apologizes to him if he finds it bothersome. But Rudd is thankful to her because he is able to fight a 3rd-ranked dragon slayer just because of her. And then she goes to her mother and requests her to take it easy on Rudd. After that, they reach the sparring ground and face each other, and their weapons will be the wooden sword, and they can only use mana inside their body. Adeline states that if he can land a blow on her in any way, it'll be his victory, and if he wins, as the leader of the troop, she will grant him a wish. They both attack each other simultaneously and block each other's swords. In a moment, Adeline jumps upon him to attack, but Rudd blocks her attack and defends himself. Everyone is surprised that the kid is taking on their leader's attacks. Adeline is also astonished because, for a 17-year-old, he possesses unbelievably refined swordsmanship and perfect technique. Compared to his technique, it's a shame that his normal body can't keep up with it. However, she wants to check how far he can go, while Rudd thinks this is how she goes easy on kids because it is getting difficult for him to resist. He pauses for a while, and Adeline asks him if he is tired already, but this time, he uses his mana to blow an attack on her. But Adeline defends herself with her mana, which makes a shield around her, and Rudd's sword breaks into pieces. Judging by the technique he uses, she observes that he has used the sky-piercing technique, and she doesn't have any idea that Daniel took in a direct disciple. She asks him to come again and take revenge for his master. Meanwhile, Leon knew that Rudd was strong, but this was beyond her expectations, and she couldn't believe her mother was having that much fun sparring with him. While Rudd states that he has already won this match because she used mana outside her body just now, Adeline didn't know that she already has broken the rule, and according to the deal, she had to grant him a wish, so she asked him to feel free to say it now. Rudd states his wish is simple and requests her to spar against her again under the same rules. They start the spar again, and Adeline observes that there's a reason he confidently asked for the second round, and the air around him is completely different from the first round. She again lands an attack on him, but Rudd's reaction speed is wild. Still, there is a gap for a counterattack. But soon, she realizes there is no gap. He avoids her attacks while simultaneously making his moves. It's quite tricky dealing with him because not only does he possess Leon's monstrous sense that allows him to read her movement perfectly, she has never seen that strange style that can prevent her from predicting his path. But she can still block him, push him away, and asks him to come at her with all he has. While fighting, she comes near him, and this is the moment he is waiting for and throws away his sword. He jumps from his place, and Adeline now gets that he was going to throw his sword from the beginning, and she needs to distance herself, but Rudd disappears before her. He appears behind her, uses the Staros fist technique, earth tremor, and breaks the floor with his fist. He then jumps upon Adeline and attacks her with his fist, but she reacts in time and kicks him back. He falls to the ground, and Leon asks him why he is pushing himself so hard in a losing fight. Rudd tells her he didn't lose because he successfully hit Adeline, and she admits her defeat. She will now keep her promise and asks him what he wants, and Rudd replies that he doesn't need anything but a promise. She needs to believe what he will say one day, and Adeline wonders what an unusual request he wants and asks him the reason. Rudd tells her that he doesn't intend to let anyone die, and Adeline, as the leader of the Dragon Annihilation Troop, promises him that she will make sure to keep her promise. Anyway, she will be replaced by the new generation soon, so she looks forward to working with him and calls him her son-in-law, which shocks both of them. It is revealed that several years from now, the 7 dragons will awaken from their slumber and start attacking various places. The 1,000-formed dragon will be the first, followed by the lightning dragon, and the third to move will be Leaja, the delusive dragon. Leaja is a member of the royal dragon family who uses psychic magic, and Siren will collapse from their surprise attack, and the Dragon Annihilation Troop will be wiped out. After that, Rudd's party will successfully subjugate the delusive dragon and avenge Leon. But at the end of the fight with the 7 dragons, it will have taken the lives of each member of their party as well. However, he thinks he will not let anyone he met today die, and now he has successfully established a connection with the Dragon Annihilation Troop. He will warn them about the Delusion Dragon's attack before it happens. Suddenly, he calls Leon and asks her why she is acting so awkward over something that was clearly a joke, but she says she is not concerned about that. Soon, they reach the academy, and it's so dark already, and she asks him if he will go with her again to visit the capital. But he doesn't reply to her and asks her why she is following her because the girls' dorm is on the other side. But she is escorting her back because she heard that there's a pervert that is coming out to exercise in front of the dorm entrance with his clothes off at night. Moreover, a blonde homeless girl roams in the central flower field, and Rudd thinks these 2 people seem Lenia and Balak and asks Leon to tell her more about them. The next morning, he goes to see the Spirit Arts academic advisor Lillian Stout and says he wants to ask something because he is curious about something. He wants to ask her about a student named Lenia Selkit because there's a small issue with that person's attitude. But the professor started shouting that sleeping on the streets, swimming in the central fountain, and having barbecue parties alone on the roof was not a small issue, and she did everything she could do as an advisor. 5 minutes later, the professor apologizes to him for being so overboard, and Rudd thinks she is so stressed. She starts the conversation by saying that Lenia is a talented student with an unrivaled affinity to spirits despite her carefreeness. She is sure that Lenia will become an unparalleled spirit soon. Her only problem is that she loves freedom too much and usually makes paper airplanes with her written exam copies or jumps out of the glass window because she's hungry. She recently destroyed an entire drill hall because she was testing spirit magic, and Rudd thinks she is worse than he thought, and how his brother turned this wild horse into a teammate in his previous life. He remembers Aesir telling him that getting Lenia to graduate was 5 times harder than all the training she went through, and at that time, He thought he was exaggerating too much. Now, the professor states that Iridium only allows failing a year twice, and if she goes on like this, expulsion wouldn't be unreasonable. Still, she doesn't want her talent wasted and asks Rudd why he requested this meeting about Linnea. Rudd says he was just concerned that such a skilled senior was acting like that, but she requests him to do something to prevent the expulsion of such an existence for this country's fame and future. Moreover, it's just that Linnea doesn't listen to anything the adults say, but she doesn't hate words of praise, and she hopes that she would listen to words full of respect from such a talented junior. Rudd exclaims that it's a bit difficult, and he is not very good with flattery, but the professor entrusts this to him. Meanwhile, a butterfly roams outside the window and flies toward Linnea, who listens to their conversation. After some time, some students pass the garden where she is openly sleeping. Meanwhile, Rudd also appears and is watching her with other students. They praise her beauty, and they have seen the prettiest homeless person for the first time, and they think she is the mixed blood of a human and a spirit. He approaches her and asks her to wake up, but she changes her side and sleeps again. He then kicks her, and after rolling for some time, she gets up and asks him what is wrong with him. Rudd asks him what she is doing there early in the morning, and she replies that she was watching the flowers and then suddenly fell asleep. Rudd introduces himself and says that he has come there on behalf of advisor Lillian, which means he is her junior, and she asks him why he arrived. He starts flattering her, admiring her, and she asks him if he wants to be her friend. But Rudd ignores her question and asks her how her academic life is going these days, but she starts running behind a butterfly. After some time, he takes her to a side and says that he has heard that his honorable senior keeps skipping classes and making a mess, which makes him sad. Linnea asks him when she made a mess, and Rudd asks her to remember the drill hall she destroyed a few days ago, but she is happy that no one was injured back then. Rudd is controlling his anger and asks her why she skips her classes, but she replies that she doesn't want to graduate because this place is warm, and there are beautiful flowers here, while her hometown is full of snow. She likes playing around more than attending classes and wants to live there forever, and Rudd asks if she knows what Academy Iridium is meant for. She has come there to become a dragon slayer, and at this moment, numerous people are dying outside the Empire because of the dragons. But Linnea asks him if humans don't kill the dragons, and humans are dragons similar to her in nature, and the most crucial thing for her is the peaceful daily life. Rudd asks if she believes that humans and dragons are identical, and she asks him to tell the difference between them. Rudd states that someone like her who has only lived in snowy mountains won't understand. Unlike the Alpha Empire, which is protected by big guilds, other empires are constantly being devastated. Humans are amicably being slaughtered, and countless nations are being destroyed daily. A place where a dragon slayer is stationed possibly has some protection. However, homes without them can be wiped off the map by even an infant Earth dragon. He asks her if she has seen her siblings, parents, and friends being eaten right before her, but she asks him why he is angry at her. Rudd gets out of control and says he would rather talk to a wall, and he knows that she is selfish, but he didn't expect her to be ignorant to this extent, while she reveals that the only reason she is here is because she is curious about her mother's alma mater. Rudd asks her to enjoy her peaceful life here until she dies while driving other kids crazy. When he left, she called her dad through a diamond and asked what she should do because she wanted to be close friends with Rudd, and he replied that friendships are built through quarrels. Linnea thinks he will apologize to him tomorrow, while the Spirit King, Feldroa, also wants to talk to him. Rudd thinks he tried his best to persuade her, but it wasn't enough, and later he worsened the situation due to his short temper. She has lived with spirits in a remote snowy mountain all her life, so it is reasonable for her not to empathize with the situation of humans and dragons, and he just vented out all his anger on a child. Aesir might have succeeded in persuading her because he was born with innate kindness, but what should he do? He is going toward the class when he sees Henneth and Leon fighting, and Henneth is shouting at her about why she came there after breaking his wrist and asks her to get lost. Henneth has seen her wandering around the dorm, and she is sure she came there to get revenge for her punishment, while Leon is trying to tell her that it was just a misunderstanding. Now, she has brought some fruits for Rudd, and he exclaims that he just got a minor injury during a spar when he went to her house. Henneth now gets that they violated school laws, went out of the capital, and visited her house, and there was also a skirmish where he was injured and is going to report this to professors when Rudd stops her. Leon apologizes to her for her previous behavior, revealing a complicated reason behind the spar, but it is pretty organized. Henneth suddenly changes her expression and offers friendship, while Leon is shocked by her sudden demand. But she again taunts her, saying Balak and she should also get a wrist and 2 or 3 ribs broken from her, which makes her sad, and she leaves them there. Rudd asks Henneth why she said such a thing, but she yells at him and asks him to follow her and make her only friend. After that, they have a class, and the professor asks them to finalize their report in the next session, and Rudd is packing up his stuff when Linnea comes to him. He asks her what she is doing there, and she asks him if he is hungry. She takes him to the school rooftop and arranges a barbecue lunch for him, but she asks him to eat when it is still warm because the meat she grills is just perfect. Rudd is having lunch when Lenia apologizes to him for her last behavior since he just wanted to help her, but she replies in a self-centered manner. Rudd thinks this is his chance, and he should better strike the iron when it is hot, and he exclaims that he is worried about her in the first place because she is a beautiful and excellent senior and is not able to graduate yet. Lenia says she didn't know she had a junior who admired her so much, and now she thinks of changing her attitude, and Rudd thinks this task proved more accessible than he thought. She offers her friendship again, and Rudd warmly accepts her friendship. She assures him that she will not skip any classes and do her best for the exams as well, and Rudd will also work hard to support her so her resolution won't fade. After a while, she tells him that her dad also wants to talk to him and asks him if this will be okay. And Spirit King appears there and asks Lenia to sleep aside because he wants to have a private conversation with her friend. Liana goes downstairs. Rudd greets the almighty Ice Spirit King, Feldroa, and the Spirit King asks him if he is a regressor. Rudd gets shocked and asks him how he knows, and he replies that he already knows that the world has been reversed once, and he smells a familiar scent from him. He reveals that the spirit realm and the physical world are different dimensions. However, the passageway was created because of the contract of spirits, and the spirit tamers lie in the middle of those dimensions. And a few days back, the spirits started experiencing nostalgia because of the physical world's influence. He was also inside one of those passageways, so he could not escape the magic that shrouded the physical world, so he sensed that the flow of time reversed. Although the Spirit King has no memories of the physical world before the flow of time changed, he asks Rudd if he was a warrior then. Rudd replies that he was not a warrior, but a burden who used to follow them, and states that he will explain to him the world he has forgotten. He then tells him the whole story, that a warrior named Aesir disappeared with the Void Dragon, and the Spirit King assures him that Aesir must be alive, because the Void Dragon he knows is careful and conscientious, and he will never attempt a suicide attack. The Spirit King thinks that he must have been on the defensive and would have tried to run away to recover his strength, and his brother must have gotten stuck in the process, and maybe he is confined in some other dimension with the Void Dragon. The Spirit King asks him about his destination, or if it's a Void Dragon's nest, the floating island, but Rudd exclaims it is not easy to get through the floating island. He needs to be prepared against the upcoming calamities and build more strength. Rudd has a question for the Spirit King, and he already knows that the present world is a world after recurrence, so if he has any idea about the dragon who caused it. The Spirit King states he can't tell him because it is an old oath he took for his own sake, and Rudd thinks what should be the real identity of the guy who compelled an entity like the Spirit King to take an oath. After that, the Spirit King asks him about his daughter, and what her end look was like before he regressed, and he tells him about the ice dragon Nephrine, and even after trying for so long, they couldn't find a way to kill that dragon. When everyone was on their last legs, Lenia decided to seal the dragon in the vast ice with herself, and even during her final moments, she was smiling. The Spirit King says that if she smiled at that time, it must have been the best decision she could have made in that situation. He assures him that he will count on him from now on, and he puts a fragment of Feldroa's spirit is squeezing into his heart. He asks Rudd to bear the pain because a spirit's power will significantly help him, and he also needs to invest in his daughter's protection. And the fragment he gave him is very tiny. But Rudd thinks he had zero affinity with spirits in his previous life and is shouting at him because he almost died due to pain. The Spirit King states that from now on, no matter where he is, he will be able to resonate with his powers and thoughts, and Rudd asks him how he will explain this to his daughter. Meanwhile, Lenia returned because they had been talking for so long and asked him why he smelled like her father, and it was not like this earlier. Rudd exclaims that this happens because they have decided to be friends, and Feldroa agrees. They decide to go back to the class, and he looks forward to her being punctual in courses from now on. A few weeks later, Feldroa's fragment is in Rudd's heart, and Feldroa asks him to hurry up since he has scheduled to meet his daughter in the library. Meanwhile, someone knocks on her room and informs him about the letter, and it is about information about the Clouded Moon Guild's investigation of his brother. Just as he requested the guild master of the Clouded Moon, Abel White, the last time they met in the school canteen, and the letter he sent him contained dozens of reports as if he had finished the investigation on his brother as promised. However, despite gathering all the intelligence, it still led to a single conclusion, that there was not a single trace of the person known as Aesir Denatos. It means that his brother didn't exist in this world from the beginning, and the only hypothesis he can conclude is that Aesir doesn't exist in the timeline of this world. Feldroa asks him about his next step now, and he has two ideas. The first is finding the traces of his brother inside the Heavenly Spirit, which is the thesaurus of the sky-piercing technique. The second is trying to find traces of the Void Dragon in its nest, the floating island, but this is also quite troublesome since he has to confront the henchman that protects the pathway. Right now, it seems complicated to try either idea. Moreover, knowing the coordinates from traces would be nothing if there is no way to open the passage to the dimension, and he thinks he should find a wizard who works with dimensional stuff. He goes to the library, where Lenia waits for him, and takes her to Henneth to teach her. But she gets angry and asks why she has to handle 2 fools there, which makes Linnea upset, and she exclaims that she is not a fool. Meanwhile, Daniel talks to him through telepathy and asks him to visit his office. He wakes Balak and asks him to keep an eye on those two so they don't clench each other's hair while he is gone. He asks him if they have a reason to fight when they have known each other for less than a week, but he asks him to try his best to stop it when they fight. He gets up from his seat when Henneth again shouts at him and asks why he is going again when he has just arrived. But he runs away from there, saying he will be back in just a moment. When they are studying, Linnea asks her why she is always mad at everything, but she surprisingly asks her when she is mad. Linnea states that she put a hateful sight on him even before Rudd arrived, and those reddish eyes, and she got angry again a while back. Henneth replies that her eyes are hereditary, and if she asks her repeatedly about when Rudd will return, she will go mad at this rate. Linnea asks how she maintains any friends with that attitude of hers. Henneth replies she never thought she would hear anything like this from a childish, ignorant person who sleeps in the alley and repeatedly fails due to skipping the lectures. Linnea exclaims that she seems more educated than her, and Henneth tells her she doesn't always tire of acting innocent. They both are almost ready to fight while Balak feels helpless, thinks about how to get this back into peace, and hopes Rudd will return soon. On the other side, Rudd enters Daniel's office and asks him what made him call him by using telepathy, and he introduces him to his master, Sky Sword Immortal Ain Brick, and she is Rudd's grandmaster. She greets him warmly, and Rudd also introduces himself. Feldroa says he has heard this name before, but it's his first time seeing her in person. She is indeed pretty young looking, and even so, her actual age exceeds 100. Her body stopped aging because her mana training reached a certain level. It is said that the aging process stops after reaching the 6 wings of the sky piercing technique, and Rudd remembers she was the one who defeated the 1,000-formed dragon in the end. Ain asks Daniel to bring cakes for her from the supermarket, and he leaves Rudd there, saying he will be back soon. After that, Brick asks him if he knows why she has come there and asks him to keep a secret of their conversation from Daniel. She asks him if he knows about a professor named Damien Grace and reveals that he has a connection with the 1,000-formed dragon. It is said that among the professors of Iradium, Damien Grace, whose body beats the heart of the 1,000-formed dragon, it is unknown how a human can live with a dragon's heart. However, with each passing day, the 1,000-formed dragon invades Damien's soul, and once his soul is engulfed, it could be the second coming of the cataclysm. Because of that, Jeremy induced Damien's suicide in the past life before the dragon heart could come to fruition, and everyone indeed agreed to his judgment. But it turned out that Jeremy snitched out the 1,000-formed dragon's heart secretly after Damien's death as if he was oblivious to the risks. After a while, the lightning dragon Harma attacked Iradium, and Rudd couldn't do anything back then because he was just a greenhorn. After a life and death battle to protect other innocent humans, Professor Daniel, Sky Sword Immortal, and hundreds of dragon slayers died. But now he wonders how the Sky Sword Immortal Brick knows about Damien at this point, and she reveals that she has come there to keep an eye on Damien. Rudd asks her if Daniel knows about all these, and she states she didn't tell him because he is very affectionate towards other professors. She has heard that all the advisors choose Rudd and asks him what he thinks about Damien. Rudd tells her he used to stay completely silent early, but nowadays he hears some advice and stories from him. According to him, he is a little timid, but not a wrong person. Brick asks him to report her immediately if she feels a change in his personality, or some aggressiveness, and Rudd thinks only a few people know about Damien's secret at this point in time. Moreover, only he can inform the Sky Sword Immortal beforehand, and he asks Brick if Jeremy tried to reach out to her. He reveals that his ideology is unsettled, and he is willing to make any sacrifice to achieve his plans and ideals, and he is sure that Jeremy will create an accident. But Brick states that killing Damien and destroying the 1,000-formed dragon's heart is the most reasonable choice. But Rudd says this is not the right way. Brick asks him for any alternative idea. Rudd says they must search for it by the remaining time. Suddenly, Daniel enters the office and brings everything Brick asked for, but she gets up and says she is leaving now. After some time, when he comes back to the library, there is no one, and he finds a note from Balak that they were kicked out of the library, and now the two of them are continuing their bloody fight on the rooftop. Meanwhile, Leon appears there and asks what he is doing here, but he asks her not to talk to him because he is entirely distressed by the upcoming exams. But she is next to him and asks if he is avoiding her because his friends don't like their friendship. And Rudd asks if she is still mad because of Henneth. She admits that she has done something awful to get Henneth on her wrong side and asks him about what he is reading. And Rudd is reading a document about the 1,000-formed dragon, one of the 7 dragons. 700 years ago, the first dragon slayer, later called the Great Hero, sealed the 7 dragon kings, and 10 years ago, the 1,000-formed dragon suddenly appeared in the southern continent and took the lives of countless dragon slayers. After that incident, only a handful of dragon slayers survived, including Sky Sword Immortal Ain Brick and Daniel Gold. Leon asks him if he thinks about bursting out of the academy and trespassing the prohibited southern continent, while Rudd replies he is not dumb that he heads into a dragon's nest and makes himself home-delivered food. Leon thinks like that because of his hatred of dragons, and he tells her that he will kill them all, and Rudd assures her that he will kill all 7 dragons after accumulating as much power as he can. He is determined to erase the very existence of dragons from this world, only that he can make up for everything he has lost. Leon asks him if the 7 dragons exist. After all, the dragon that appeared during the Thousand Form incident had certain similarities with the Thousand Form dragons in the records, so people just named it that way. But Rudd exclaims that they exist. The monster he saw 10 years ago, the Thousand Form dragon, was indeed a catastrophe, and he has experienced it beforehand and doesn't want to go through it again. Leon asks him if he is not scared because she fears people around him will get hurt or die. Suddenly, Rudd gets up and says it is dinner time, so he will eat while Leon follows her and says she will help him reach his goals and formulate strategies for subduing the 7 dragons or even making another new guild. Rudd asks about Dragon Annihilation Troop, but she is sure her mom will support her decision. After a while, Leon goes to her dorm, but Claire appears there and asks why she has not been attending her supplementary lecture, and drags her saying they have to see the result of getting beaten up for a month and a half. She takes her to the training hall, and they both start a spar, while Claire thinks these lectures were intended to teach character building, but fast learners are undoubtedly fun to tutor. She likes her grappling techniques and wonders where she learned them. Now, Leon knows how to counterattack, but Claire gets stable on time and kicks her back, which makes her fall to the ground. Claire appreciates her, saying that she has learned quite a few things, but Leon replies that she only tried to get her down all the time and that what she has learned is from somebody else. Claire also hears Rudd teaching her, and Leon exclaims that he knows how to explain things, unlike someone else. On the other side, Rudd is lost in her thoughts when Fuldroa appears there and asks about his first date with Leon, but he thinks that Leon before his regression is a different person from the current Leon. The following day, they have a written exam, and all the students discuss their preparations, and Rudd is also studying his book. After the exam, they all gather at the cafe, where Henneth says it's her victory since she has finished the test 5 minutes faster than him. Balak exclaims that he spent the test in 1 minute, but Henneth knows that he wrote a letter begging the professor to let him off this one time. She says it's impossible to make him study, just like it's impossible to teach the crazy senior. Meanwhile, Linnea is passing by them and listens to Henneth's remarks about her and exclaims that her grades have improved since she studies with Rudd now. They both stare at each other while Rudd and Balak are having lunch, ignoring them. He calls Fuldroa and asks him to try to stop them, but he says girls usually get closer as they fight, but he thinks they can't get closer even after fighting for 10 years. Balak asks him if he is prepared for tomorrow's practical exam, but Rudd says it'll probably be another random field for the actual exam. The next day, all the students gather for their first practical exam. Arthur reveals that the practical examination will be conducted in the particular test sites built for Iradium, located on the outskirts of the Alpia Empire. The test sites are located all over the continent, so the types of magical beasts will vary widely depending on the climate and environment. All the students will reach their test sites through the warp gate, and their goal for this practical exam is to follow a dragon's trail and slay it while avoiding magical beast interference. He also tells them that they can't leave a scratch on a dragon with normal swordsmanship, and compared to the magical beasts, it has much higher intelligence and magic resistance. He is sure they all know how much he has to put on the line to become a true dragon slayer, and he starts the practical exam. Rudd remembers the practical exam in his past life, and Leon made him feel like a beaten dog in the final round of the additional test and enters the warp gate. He reaches the testing site of an academy where people from all over the country gather, and ordinary magic beasts aren't threats there. If things get dangerous, a professor or an instructor will step in since they will be supervising the test. The goal is just one beast anyways, so he needs to look for one. He asks Feldro to detect the dragon's traces, but he refuses. After a while, he finds a beast who attacks him first, but Rudd reacts in time and dodges his attack by jumping from his place. He then takes out his sword and attacks him repeatedly with the help of it. Soon, he kills the beast and thinks there is no way the Earth Dragon can ignore this much blood scent, and it will appear quickly. Soon, he hears some footsteps, and judging by the sound of footsteps, it must be a huge guy. But he gets surprised to see the boy is Wilhelm, not a dragon. He informs him that an incredibly colossal thing is approaching, so they should run. Meanwhile, a vast dragon comes to them and attacks them. Rudd tries to stop him with the help of his sword, but it's quite robust, and at this rate, his sword will break soon. The dragon pushes him back, but he uses his mana to get stable. It's been 2 months since he started learning the sky-piercing technique, and the power of 3 winds should be enough to take care of this dragon. He attacks the dragon with the help of his sword and stabs the sword in its mouth. Wilhelm is shocked to see that he is not afraid of the dragons, while he is attacking the dragon with the help of his sword. But Wilhelm calls him from behind and exclaims that it's an impossible feat because he has tried using his sword aura too, since a sword is no match for those hard scales. But Rudd asks him to shut up and watch. He knows that dragons are hard, but their eye sockets, respiratory system, and joint are relatively soft. And if he can make a gap between those scales, then penetrating will be easy. He repeatedly attacks him until his sword breaks, and he wonders if his sword is not strong enough to cut off its neck bone. No matter how good the equipment is, slaying a dragon with just a student sword is difficult, and he asks Wilhelm if he got some spare swords. But his sword is also broken, and he is shocked that Rudd knocks down a dragon with just a student's sword. Rudd wonders if the dragon is dead, and Wilhelm thanks him for saving him and apologizes for the incident last time. He then asks him if he can make him his rival and states that he thought himself strong enough in the place where he came from. However, looking at him today, he has realized that Rudd is very strong, and he can't even compare himself to him. Rudd wonders why he is saying things like that and agrees to make him his rival, while Feldroa says this is because he is a replica of his previous life. Meanwhile, a professor appears there, states that Group A's practical test is over, and asks them to prepare to return to the rendezvous point. Meanwhile, Gerald D. Graham, director of Iradium Academy, watches him through a binocular and says Rudd is exactly like he heard in rumors, an unpolished diamond. Daniel appears there and asks him what his opinion is about Rudd, and he exclaims that he had expectations after hearing all the compliments from the professors, but he's beyond his expectations. Daniel also brags that he is unbelievable when he is 17 and is sure that he will do well in additional tests, and will become an unprecedented and exceptional dragon slayer. While Gerald states that Rudd might become more than a warrior, and might have become the hero of freedom, just like the biography of Vanner, the beginning of dragon slayers. A long time ago, humans were mere prey for dragons. The earth dragons roamed on the ground, and the flying dragons hovered in the sky. The giant dragons were as big as a mountain. It was as if dragons owned everything, the land and the sky. There was a special kind that reigned over all other dragons, the Draconites. Only their appearance resembled humans, but they had high intelligence and strength. With that, they slaughtered humans, used them as prey, and even violated their rights. Gerald reveals that 700 years ago, the Draconites used this place as an arena where humans fought as gladiators for their amusement. But it has now become the Iradium's amphitheater, symbolizing the dragon slayers and freedom. As the successor of the sky-piercing technique, Daniel also understands the record and the memories of the past. At that time, Vanner was just a gladiator trampled by the Draconites. He was more substantial than anybody else. He gathered his colleagues who were in the same situation as him and started the revolution. After a long battle, he and the first group of dragon slayers drove the Draconites over the great northern mountains. In the end, even their king, the seventh dragon, was sealed, and that's how the era of freedom came to humans. Daniel has read this story as a must-read fairytale story that poets always talk about. That's why he took it for granted this whole time. But there are some parts he doesn't understand. He asks Gerald if Vanner was really strong. He shouldn't have just driven off the dragons, then why he didn't just annihilate them, and why he only sealed the seventh dragon, not kill him. Gerald says he doesn't need to worry about whatever happened in the past was done so that humans could live like humans. After some time, the practical test of all groups has ended, and the instructors ask the students to return their weapons and gather at the designated location. Also, the tournament bracket and venue of matches to be held after 3 days have been posted in the main hall. 3 days later, on the day of the additional test, every student thinks he can get the armor from the Iradium treasury that belongs to him. Only top students from each group will participate in the test, so Henneth and Rudd both are participating. And she warns him that she will not go easy on him just because they are friends. He asks Balak why he participates when he doesn't use weapons and replies that a match with a strong opponent is essential for building a strong body. But his opponent is powerful, and Henneth shouts at him that she will kill him if he loses to Leon. He asks Rudd if she is that strong, and he states that she is incredibly strong. And in fact, she is the most outstanding among all the freshmen. The match begins, and Balak appears 10 minutes late after that match start, and Balak introduces himself. He appreciates that Leon looks strong enough to become the opponent of this noble body, and they both are ready to attack each other. She attacks him first, but Leon is surprised that he blocks it with his muscles. On top of that, the speed and wide attack range are pretty good, but the wider the range is, the more exposed he is, and now she thinks to aim for his opening. But Balak attacks her again and again without any opening. Instead, he has no intention of dodging his attacks at all. She tries to attack him, but his body is impervious to sword aura. She asks him if he has completely fused mana with his muscles or something because his body is quite tough. But Balak thinks her attacks are not blunt. They hurt to the bones. He wonders if her mana far surpasses his, so he removes his shirt and takes out his mana. He comes forward to attack her sword, but she dodges him and makes him fall to the ground. She has insane speed and is attacking him without using the sword with the help of her kicks and punches, and Balak thinks he will now bring out all his might to take him on. He furiously takes out his mana, but suddenly, a senior appears there and disqualifies him from the round. He has been disqualified due to his naked body, and Leon is determined to be the winner. Henneth suggests they should not tell anyone that Balak is their friend because a girl has defeated him. But Rudd doesn't reply because he is staring at Leon. She then shouts at him and says it'll be their turn soon, and today they are fighting against each other. Henneth Herpulia, the flame witch, this wench's talent, who would later become the strongest pyromancer, bloomed late. No one could surpass Henneth in the numerous fights she participated in her prime. She made a name for herself with her sophisticated techniques and sharp judgment and more than anything. But this time, her opponent is Aesir Denatos, and she thought she would hold the ground for a while but lost awfully. She is determined that it will be different next time, and Rudd is declared the winner. He gives her a helping hand, and Henneth asks him to teach her dagger arts, but Rudd refuses by saying she will undoubtedly do well on her own. After that, some teachers discuss with new students that they are very talented, and that the final round of the additional test will be between Rudd and Leon. But she is running because she doesn't want to fight him. But she can see that Rudd is acting like someone desperate to fight. He follows her, asks what she is doing there, and asks her to return to the waiting room because the finale will start in 30 minutes. But Leon reveals that she doesn't want to fight him, and that's why she is withdrawing from the match. But Rudd gets angry about this and asks her if she is throwing cheap pity for trash that isn't even worth fighting her. While Leon is shocked at why he acts that way, Rudd pushes her back and says she has no right to avoid this match. He determines to win against her this time. He remembers when Leon took her last breath in his last life and tried to get her up because he hadn't won against her yet. But she dies in front of him, and he remembers that she always called him trash, punk, or damned kid, and he detested her as much as she hated everything about him. At that time, the Dragon King appeared there and said Leon made a foolish choice because she was strong enough to kill the delusive dragon, but she died defending someone weak like him. He thinks at that time she was lonely and distant, and he wasn't trying to surpass her because he only hunted dragons for his own revenge. After some time, a senior declares that the final round of the additional test is forfeited because the opponent Leon didn't show up, and they say Aesir Denatos is the winner, while all the students wonder why she didn't appear or if she got scared of Rudd. While he thinks if this is the end, he won't let her go in this life. She stays outside the academy for a long time and thinks the additional test should be over now, but Rudd appears there and stares at her furiously. He finds her because in his previous life, she always came there whenever she was upset, and he often came there to pick a fight with her. He throws his sword near her and asks her to get up for the final match. She asks him why he is taking this match so far, but Rudd has already told her she has no right to avoid the match. He attacks her with his sword, but Leon dodges him and says she doesn't want to fight him. But this doesn't matter with Rudd because he wants to fight her at any cost. She thinks his sword aura is unbelievably heavy. Even so, he won't be able to break through her mana shield. But she gets shocked to see her mana shield break soon, and now she must fight him properly. She uses a hyper sword aura and asks him to stop because no matter how strong he is, he can't win against her if he can't use hyper sword aura. But Rudd wants to try to find out whether he wins or loses, but she again states that the only thing that can stand against hyper sword aura is another hyper sword or high magic spell. But Rudd puts his sword aside and drags her into hand-to-hand combat. But Leon thinks she must keep her distance because she can't let this go through according to his will. But soon Rudd covers the space between them, reaches her, and punches her face with his full might. She is trying to attack him, but he has a fantastic reaction speed and is perfectly reading all of her reactions just like when he sparred with her mother. While Rudd thinks his training is in vain because he is perfectly fighting and is dominant over Leon. After pushing all that, he takes out his sword when it's evident that he will be at a disadvantage since he can't use hyper sword aura. Now, they both have a serious fight with their auras, and Leon is shocked to see that he is using aura from his wings, and it's kind of similar to her hyper sword aura. But the level of perfection is different, and Leon falls to the ground this time since she can't bear the pressure. She asks him if he is satisfied now because he has won, while he thinks he should be satisfied because he defeated the monster who treated him like trash all his life. But he feels empty and unhappy, while Leon states he forced her to fight even without letting her know the reason. She angrily gets up and punches his face and calls him a psycho. She grabs him by his collar and shouts at him, saying she told him that she didn't want to fight. But Rudd says he wanted to win against her at least once to get acknowledged by her because her strength wasn't something the likes of him could ever have. Leon doesn't understand what he is talking about and asks him if he is out of his mind. But Rudd reveals that she died protecting him in his previous life. Fildroa appears there and asks him to stop saying anything, but he again repeats that she died protecting him and left a will, which shocked her. She asks him what kind of nonsense he is talking about while Rudd says it's up to her to believe it or not because he has no way to prove it. But he is not lying because he regressed to the past, and the moment right now is a second chance for him. She asks him if he already knows her, and about her future, and Rudd reveals that in her previous life, she lived only for revenge and treated him like a roadside garbage bin. Moreover, she was so strong and rude that he risked his life to fight her, and Leon asked him if this was why he picked a fight with her when they first met. Rudd exclaims he wants to have a round with her, but she is more substantial than he thought, and she starts shouting at him hearing that. She again asks him why he taught her grappling techniques when he hated her so much, and Rudd states he was making her strong so that he could defeat her. They had an inferior relationship in their previous life, but Leon says it's different now because he already told her it's his second chance. She apologizes to him for her behavior in his previous life for calling him trash, and always coldly ignoring her. But he shouts at her for apologizing for the things she doesn't remember. She states that she is different from her past life and expresses her feelings for him and that she likes him. The next morning, he wakes up after seeing a dream about Leon and asks Feldroa if it was a dream, but he tells him that it was not a dream at all. He remembers the last night. He ran away from there after hearing Leon's confession, and now he thinks he will pretend that he never heard it. Suddenly, he remembers that today is the day. He will receive his reward for the additional test and goes straight to Gerald. He asks him why he looks tired, or if he doesn't get his sleep, and he replies that he is just nervous about getting into the treasury. Inside the Aradium's treasury are the old legacy of dragon slayers, all the rare artifacts and weapons, and they all are priceless reassures. Even if someone wins the tournament, the door T treasury door is only opened after it's approved by the head of the academy, and the majority of professors. So Rudd has had the honor of opening this door for a long time. He had the weapon that Aesir and Leon took out of the treasury in his previous life, but now there is no substitute for his brother in this life. Soon, they reach the Aradium's treasury, and Gerald reveals that this treasury isn't only limited to Aradium, but also the history of dragon slayers in itself. He enters the treasury, and at first glance, everything seems to be of the highest quality. Feldroa asks him if he is looking for something in particular. Rudd finds the heavenly defying sword Demios was looking for, and Feldroa reveals that it's the sword the first dragon slayer, Vanner, used. It's a blank ink colored sword that can cut off the flow of mana and counteract any high-ranking magic spells, and Feldroa asks him if he chose that sword because he wanted to follow hero Vanner's steps. Rudd states he has heard the legends of Vanner numerous times, but he doesn't want to follow in his footsteps, because if he wants to save the world, he will kill all the dragons instead of sealing them. He chose this sword only because Aesir also used this in his past life, and this sword's ability is perfect for dealing with superior draconic species. After that, something collides with her foot, and Gerald reveals that it's not a weapon, and he doesn't think it has a safety magic spell either. But Rudd seems to recognize this thing and remembers when he asked Aesir about the suicide of Professor, but he showed something in the sky. After a while, that thing breaks, and a dragon appears from it, and they get that this is the stealing stone of the lightning dragon Harma. He came to know the existence of 7 dragons for the first time in his life when he lacked skills and determination. The terrible screams and the disgusting stench of burning flesh they caused couldn't be forgotten even after decades. However, he wonders why the stealing stone of the lightning dragon that caused the tragedy is in Aradium's treasury. Everything in the treasury has a security spell, but this thing doesn't have anything like that. It means that the lightning dragon didn't raid Iridium, rather it was there since the beginning. He asks Feldroa if he can find when the lightning dragon will wake up, and he replies that the seal's condition is not good, and it appears like it's not going to last more than 2 years. Rudd thinks in his previous life, the lightning dragon invasion happened about half a year from now, and it was only a few months after Professor Damien's death. It's clear that the heart of the thousand-formed dragon that Jeremy stole has spurred the activity of the lightning dragon. Feldroa asks him if he is taking it with him, and he replies that he will take it because it is the seed of disaster, and he needs to make his moves ahead of schedule. Meanwhile, Feldroa asks him a weird question. His intention to kill the dragon will remain the same if he finds a good dragon in the world. But Rudd exclaims there does not exist such a thing as a good dragon, and if it exists, it will indeed be a dead dragon. They can't tamper the sealing stone since the seal will be eventually destroyed in half a year or 2, so it's best to prepare for an upcoming incident. After a few days, he goes to Sir Damien's class, but the atmosphere is still the same, and he asks him why he wants to take his class when his dagger skills are already out of his league. Rudd replies that he still has much to learn from him and wants to hear more about his experience because he thinks he is worthy of respect as a former dragon slayer. But he stays silent, and Rudd says he may be guilty over something. He is sure that Damien knows that he is from Dissol, which is probably why he has the heart of the thousand-formed dragon who destroyed his hometown. And Rudd thinks he can provoke his guilt and get to the bottom of his heart. He asks him if he has heard of Dissol, which is a village on the outskirts of Calavan Kingdom, but now the place is completely destroyed. He tells him that during the hunting season, he and his father made a snare to catch wild animals, and he ate warm stew that his mother made for dinner. He was happy at that time until that dragon appeared. While Damien seems shocked, Rudd continues the conversation and tells him that all the once peaceful villages were annihilated, and only he and his brother survived. Damien asks him if he has a big brother, and Rudd replies that they both are apart now. Suddenly, Damien gets up and says the lecture is over and he can tell the remaining story next time. Rudd comes outside and seems exhausted because he thought he would be okay, but he didn't know he would be eaten up with guilt. But he is almost there, and now he has to make him open his mouth somehow. But Feldroa asks him what if he never opens his mouth, and his story is meaningless to him. But Rudd is sure that will not happen because Damien carries too much guilt to be a wicked man. It's been quite a while since that day, but there's no word from Professor Damien yet, and Rudd thinks he will have to spit out something soon so he can set up a plan. Currently, his maximum output is 4 wings, and using the Sword River and the subspace becomes possible. But it is towards the reverse side of the Brain Light Dragon, and Feldroa asks him if there is a space in Chun 6 report. Rudd reveals that a part of the Heavenly Spirit, it is an individual space that allows the heir and his elder brother from his previous life to use numerous weapons through this subspace freely. Feldroa asks him if he can use it for defense when in a hurry, and Rudd exclaims that the inner space may be open. After that, he comes outside, where Leon and Balak are fighting, and Leon asks him to wear his clothes while training, but he states that Henneth has no complaints about him being naked. Rudd uses his spirit magic to make him cold so that he doesn't need to take off his shirt, but they all are shocked and ask him when he learned this magic. Rudd replies that it's been a while and asks them to stop fighting now, while Leon asks him why he didn't answer her yet. Henneth gets attentive and asks what she means by the answer, and Leon reveals that she confessed to Rudd that she liked him, but he hasn't answered yet. Surprisingly, she is about to start, but they hear a sudden noise from outside. They see through the door to check what is happening and see 3 boys fighting Wilhelm and beating him, while Wilhelm is asking them to apologize over something. And soon they know that he asks them to apologize for insulting Aesir Denatos. Wilhelm exclaims that Rudd is his rival, and they don't have the right to swear with dirty words. But the boy punches him badly and makes him fall. He grabs him by his collar and is about to punch him again, but Rudd appears there and grabs his arm. He hits the boy with his full might, and Wilhelm gets emotional that Rudd comes to help him. After that, he beats up his seniors and asks them, after punishing them, what the reason for the seniors to catch Wilhelm and beat him up is, and they reveal that it is the doing of the student's president, Jeremy Tuval. After some time, Rudd rushes toward his room, where a student is trying to stop him, but he doesn't listen to her. Jeremy asks her to go back, saying he will take care of the matter now, and when she is left, he asks him what business brought him there. He offers to sit on the chair, but Rudd furiously kicks out the chair and asks him to tell him what is on his mind. He asks him why he made the boy named Brett curse him, and Jeremy exclaims that it seems to be some misunderstanding and says that he will never do such a thing. Moreover, he exclaims that he also spoke to him harshly on the test day, and he just wanted to talk with him. He starts the conversation by saying that these days, he seems to be in frequent contact with Damian Grace, and he already warned him that Damian Grace is in danger. He again asks him to stay away from him because he doesn't know him yet. But he gets shocked when Rudd tells him that Damien has the 1,000-formed dragon's heart. He didn't expect that Rudd knew this already, but he didn't understand the reason he was in touch with Damien if he already knew of it. He assumes that the Sky Sword Immortal probably told him to keep an eye on Damien and inform her about any danger. Rudd exclaims that he knows about his intentions but will not let Damien die this time and will make sure of it. On the other side, Damien thinks he should tell Rudd the fact that he has the 1,000-formed dragon's heart and the reason why he has the heart. When he was a kid, he asked his grandpa what he would read for him, and he wanted to listen to the story of Dragon Slayer because this was what he wanted to become, just like his grandpa. His first memory is the savory aroma of coffee and his grandfather's big hand that patted his hair roughly. His parents, who were dragon slayers, died when he was very young, and after that, he was raised by his retired grandfather. Thanks to his grandfather's efforts, he grew up well enough to never feel the absence of his parents, and he always thought he would become a great dragon slayer, but he faced mana hypersensitivity. It was a rare disease in which the patient's body overreacted to mana, the source of life, and his body was torn apart by the excruciating pain that flowed through him like blood coursing through veins. Despite the countless visits from many doctors, he lay on the bed for many years, clinging to life with no signs of improvement or recovery, and he even forgot the scenery outside. One day, his grandpa entered the home in a state of disappointment, asked him if he wanted to live, and gave his the dragon heart to swallow. He promised he would be fine in a minute and forced him to eat the heat. Currently, he is crying and thinks his grandfather didn't do anything wrong because he just saved his grandson, and asked Rudd to blame him because he unknowingly borrowed the heart that took the lives of others to prolong his existence. On the other side, Henneth is still thinking about Leon. She confesses her feelings for Rudd when her classmate asks if she doesn't have the training lecture with Lyanna. She couldn't concentrate because there was a lot on her mind, so Lyanna said it was better to rest today than waste effort, so she ended it early. She asks his classmate how it feels if her friend makes a girlfriend, and now he will not hang out with her anymore. But she asks him if she is worried because he is her friend or she also has feelings for him. Meanwhile, Rudd enters and asks if this place is Alchemy Club, but Henneth asks why he is there, and Rudd says he wants to join the club. He is filling out the form while the girl asks Henneth if he is the same boy she was talking about, and after a while, she leaves by saying Henneth will guide him through the club. He gives the form to Henneth, and she is surprised that he is motivated to join the club to manufacture medicines such as potions. She then asks him to sit there and wait for her. She will look for the research records while Rudd sees her research paper about heart-stroke disease. It is stated that the mana is the power of the world that flows inside the body. This unknown power is still a research subject even after centuries of discovery. Because of this, varieties of special constitutions and diseases have not yet been identified. Heart stroke is one of those unidentified diseases in which an excessive mana is released to the outside. The body can't endure it and dies of high fever. It is kind of similar but different from Professor Damien's case, who is suffering from mana hypersensitivity. In her previous life, Henneth spent her whole life making treatments for her sister, Lila Harpulia, who suffered from heart stroke, and after persistent research, she succeeded in finding a cure. But when she reached her, it was too late, and she died before the treatment. 4 months after Lila's funeral, Leon told him that she didn't eat anything but just cried the day, and Balak stated that it was the sadness of losing a family member. Still, the position of the Midsummer Flame Guild leader had been vacant for too long, and the voices of dissatisfaction were rising within the guild. He angrily rushed toward her, where she was crying on her sister's bed. He asked her when she would call, and she couldn't ignore her duties towards the Midsummer Flame and Dragon Slayers just because her sister was dead or if she wanted to give up on the guild. Henneth furiously warned him not to repeat anything, but he made her fun, asking if she was going to complain to her sister. She furiously used her magic and burnt the whole room, while Balak and Leon outside expected something like that. Henneth asked him why he picked up a fight when he couldn't win, and Rudd replied he wanted to check if her brain was still there. At present, Henneth shouts at him and asks why he is reading other people's research papers, and he asks her why he is studying this intractable disease. She reveals it is an incurable disease, and doctors and noble priests could not find the cure, and her big sister is like a living corpse. Rudd shows that it isn't incurable, and he has seen patients who have been cured. He tells her about a really moody woman, the person who is researching its cure, who is dead now. However, since he didn't know much about alchemy and only learned a little from her, if they get the suitable ingredient, it won't be hard for her to make the cure, and he can help if she wants to make it, but in return, she will have to buy him some potions. It is revealed that Iradium hosts a festival every late spring, an annual event that is important not only in Iradium, but nationally to commemorate the era of humans that began after the first Dragon Slayer sealed the 7 dragons. Because of this, outsiders are also allowed to enter the Iradium campus, and numerous tourists from and outside the Alpia Empire visit this festival, leading to a massive crowd. Leon asks Rudd if he would like to go sightseeing with him during the festival, but he refuses her, saying he is busy these days, and she wonders if he is ignoring her. Suddenly, she notices Henneth sitting beside her and asks why he is here alone during the festival season, but she doesn't want to tell her about what she thinks right now. She asks her what she is doing there or if she doesn't have any friends, and Leon replies that she has an appointment. Henneth tells her that her friend has ditched her, and now she doesn't have anyone to hang out with during the festival, and Leon laughs at her honest reply. She tells her that she also lied about her appointment and has no friends to hang out with. Meanwhile, Lenia also appears there and asks what they are doing there, but Henneth gets annoyed after seeing her and asks Leon if she is also Rudd's friend. She introduces herself as Rudd's friend, while Henneth asks her what brings her there because they are not friends to have chit-chat. Henneth and Lenia seem to get into a fight when Balak appears there and asks them to keep their voice down because they are dragging attention to themselves. She asks him why he is roaming on the campus naked, but a student appears there and calls Balak the God Muscle and says that the 8 students have taken his autograph. After some time, they all go for lunch, and Henneth discusses that she is confused about Rudd, what he is doing, and why he bought many potions. But Lenia gets sad and says she is talking behind Rudd's back when she is his friend, but now she should stop calling him a friend. But Henneth shouts at her, saying she can't frame everyone in her innocence drama, and they again start arguing. So Leon gets up and says she is going to have some rest. While walking, she thinks about Rudd and that he must focus on something else because he states that he saw a terrible future. Even now, he is preparing for future events unbeknownst to them, and she hopes he will only try to carry some things. On the other side, Rudd is done with his research, and Feldroa taunts him that he took too many days for some knowledge. He exclaims that Rudd doesn't know his physical condition and that he is a human with a weak body. No matter how much mana is raised to amplify physical ability, there is a limit to the body's durability, and he asks him how he addressed his techniques in his past life. Rudd says he has no solution, so he just carried it around until he developed a disability. His limbs creaked like rust, and he often got bloodshot. But he fought well, even if it was a piece of rags. Feldroa says it can't be just that, especially when he forces his whole body to activate his extreme sense. There must have been some side effects, but whatever the side effects are, their opponents are the 7 dragons. They are just named dragons, but they are a disaster, and he can't guarantee they can win the fight even if he gives up his life. But he is determined to do everything he can to kill all the dragons of this world where his brother doesn't exist. After some time, he enters Gerald's office, who is surprised to see him there. His nickname is Slaughterer, and he is a hero who slashed the necks of numerous dragons and returned alive from the battle against sky dragons. Later, he retired because of a wound he got from that battle. However, acknowledging his achievements, he was chosen to be the principal of the Aradium Academy, and is a dragon slayer who deserves to be respected by many people. He asks Rudd what brings him there, and Rudd remembers he was the man who stole the heart of the thousand-formed dragon. However, he tells him he just visited to see how he is doing, and Gerald asks him if he is enjoying the festival. After some time, he tells him that he talked a lot with Professor Damien, learned much, and that the Academy's principal is Professor Damien's maternal grandfather. Gerald is shocked to hear all this, and Rudd reveals that he knows about the hearts of thousands of dragons he placed in Damien's heart. Gerald turns his table, rushes toward Rudd to attack him, and grabs him by his neck. But Rudd is also prepared for a situation like this and gets free while Gerald asks him why he is telling him about this or if he is already ready to die when he comes there. Rudd asks him if he will kill a student even though he is the head of the academy, but Gerald says he has to cut off his limbs to shut his stupid mouth. Gerald attacks him like he will tear apart his limbs, and Rudd uses low-level wind spirit magic to dodge his attack. He uses a potion to recover himself and thinks it's too much for him to deal with the 4-winged slaughterer since the density of mana is on an entirely different level, and Gerald gets that he was expecting a battle. Rudd exclaims that he has come there to notify him that he will pull out his grandchild's heart, so he has to prepare that much. Gerald again comes forward to attack him, but Brick appears there and says her grand disciple surely knows how to piss people off. A few hours ago, Rudd told his plan to Brick through telepathy, and she asked him if Damien was a remnant of the thousand-formed dragon and why this was not enough reason to kill him. But Rudd replied he wanted to kill the thousand-formed dragon, not Professor Damien, and now she has come there to help him. Gerald states her behavior has been suspicious for quite a while, and wonders if she has planted a surveillance network at the academy, and Brick says he is perfectly correct. She reveals that Rudd has a great plan worth putting his only grandson's life on the line. But he doesn't believe them and says if they destroy the heart, Damien will die slowly with terrible pain and will not let it happen. Rudd assures him they will not kill him but just get the heart, but he furiously attacks him. Brick grabs him by his collar and asks why he only chose words that can upset people, but Rudd says he was telling his plan. She asks him to go according to the plan that she will deal with Gerald, and Rudd will get the heart of thousand-formed dragons. They both start fighting, but when someone is confronted with the sky-piercing technique's whirlwind, everything becomes unattainable. Meanwhile, Rudd thinks everything is happening within his expectations and will ensure that the thousand-formed dragon won't come back from the dead this time. But soon, he is shocked to see Damien is in bad condition, and he feels like his skull will crack. He thought Guild was the cause of the pain that started after he persuaded him to commit suicide. He told Rudd everything, but the pain didn't go away. But soon, Jeremy reaches there and says he is indeed an obnoxious creep who belongs in a dirty alley. Damien furiously grabs him by his neck, but Jeremy asks him to die before his condition gets more miserable. Damien releases him. Jeremy says he can help him die, and he needs to stand still. Damien thinks this is right as a dragon slayer, that it's better to be dead than a living monster. But he remembers Rudd asked him to survive if he is sorry for him. Jeremy attacks him with his dagger, but Damien grabs the knife and his monster wakes up. The sky turns black. Rudd thinks the worst has happened, and the second coming of the thousand-formed dragon, the Red Knight, has begun. On the other side, Leon senses some weird feeling, and it is raining suddenly, but these are not raindrops. They are shards of mana released by someone. The pattern of these shards is so chaotic and unique that even Leon can't grasp its essence. Soon, the sky has turned pitch black, and many monsters appear from the raindrops. One of them rushes toward a family who gets scared to see it, but Leon gets in between and saves them. She asks them to run away if they want to live as far as possible. One of the students gets afraid, but Leon asks him to get up and fight them because they are the cadets of Aradium, and she asks other students to either run away or fight back but don't get afraid. Many of them take out their weapons and attack the beasts, and Leon thinks they are He's Black Dongs. Although their attacks disfigure their bodies, they can't kill them outright. Suddenly, she asks the students to get down and uses her mana to stop their amazing regeneration. After that, she reveals that these monsters are completely powdered and won't regenerate anymore. And soon she realizes that this all happened because of thousand-form dragon. She instructs the students to disperse and protect the civilians, evacuate the injured ones to safety, and thinks to run toward Rudd. But suddenly, a large amount of mana falls in front of her and a beast appears from it. Leon is ready to fight him. Meanwhile, Rudd is disappointed because the future has changed again, and Brick tells him that someone has tried to take the heart out. She asks him if he will still look for Damien in this situation. But Damien appears there and says there is no need to look for him. Gerald remembers that when his son took his last breath, he requested him to protect his son at any cost. But he is now crying because he ended up making the same mistake again. His grandson rushes toward him to attack, but Rudd comes in between and dodges him. Rudd is attacking him, but Gerald stops him, saying he can't kill his grandson on his watch. But Brick stops him, asking if he is mad and if he wants everyone to die here. Rudd asks her what he should do or if he should let him die instead, and she replies that he brought this to himself, and they don't have any option but to kill him. Since he touches the thousand-form dragon's heart, he should have prepared to die at the hands of his grandson, who was fated to become a monster. Rudd says all he has to do is take care of the heart, and Brick states his assimilation with the dragon has progressed significantly. His appearance is already like a draconite, and he has also gained a little regenerative ability. It won't be long before he is completely engulfed. It will be too late once that happens. However, Rudd asks his grandmaster to take care of that side. As she says, they are running out of time, with Gerald being engaged, and now it's the time, and Damien's eyes are already like the dragon. Even if the thousand-form dragon currently controls his mind, the body still belongs to Professor Damien, and all of his attacks follow a familiar trajectory. He has already mastered Damien's attack pattern during the sparring lectures, so this should be enough to protect him. Since the thousand-form dragon hasn't gained complete control over this body, if the heart is destroyed, it won't be able to regenerate and will be annihilated. He uses his mana and attacks him repeatedly, while the dragon seems clumsy and does not attack him so fast. But soon, he observes that it purposely avoids fighting back and is getting used to his attacks so they don't work on him. Rudd thinks he needs to finish this before he makes a mess, and the dragon has a long sleep and has a never-ending empty stomach. And Rudd is just like a dinner for him. Soon, he is recovering his mana, and Rudd cannot understand his trick. Damien uses extreme sense and attacks Rudd while he can't use the heaven-defying sword Manhwa because it uses too much mana. Due to that much pressure, Rudd gets injured, and Fuldroa asks him if he is okay, but he doesn't seem okay. He takes out a healing potion and pours it upon him. The dragon exclaims that he looks so tasty and attacks him, saying he will eat him till only bones are left. Rudd dodges his attack and thinks his movements have become so smooth in a short time, and the adaptability of the thousand-form dragon is genuinely remarkable. But still, he can attack him using his mana, but it's a pain to keep using the high-ranking magic. He then uses the Thunder Strike technique taught by Arthur and prepares an attack for him. On the other side, Balak hears a strong wave while Henneth asks him to stop distracting and focus on these dogs. They are large numbers, and there is no end to them, but Linnea uses all her mana and kills them. Henneth uses her circular magic and burns them all. After a while, another beast appears and faces Balak, and he observes that the beast is using the Steros family's technique.